Okay, so you're thinking about getting your master's in Germany,
Yeah.
maybe looking at some programs, feeling a
Uh-huh.
little overwhelmed.
I bet.
Where do you even begin?
Right?
So think of this deep dive as your guide to everything you need to know.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good stuff here.
We do.
We've got some expert insights,
Hoax
some
it.
guides, even stories from real students
Cool.
who've gone through this whole process themselves.
So we're trying to paint a clear picture of what this whole journey to a master's in Germany actually looks like.
Exactly. We want you to be able to walk away from this and be like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, like I can actually do this.
Yeah, I can do this.
All right, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
We looked at a ton of different sources for this.
We did a lot of research.
So we've got guides.
Yep.
We've got quotes from some real experts like Dr. Marcus Langer
Oh, yeah, he's great.
from TU Munich.
Yep. And we also talked to Julia Zimmerman over at Dayad.
Cool.
Really interesting perspectives from both of them.
And then we also looked at the stories of a few students like Shantakumar, Rajath, and Yashis, SK.
Oh, wow. They all used LetzStudy.
They did.
That's cool.
Really interesting to see how that helped them out.
Yeah.
So we're going to pull this all together,
Yep.
distill it down to the essentials,
The need to knows.
uncover some maybe unexpected stuff,
Yeah, the stuff that you might not have even thought to ask.
and really just give you a solid foundation for moving forward.
So you don't have to feel lost and overwhelmed.
Exactly. All right, so let's tackle the big one first.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that everyone's always thinking about,
Money.
finances.
The money stuff.
You know, can I actually afford to do this?
Right.
Is this actually reasonable for me?
It's a big question.
It is.
So let's talk about it.
Okay, so one of the huge draws of doing your master's in Germany is that at most public universities, tuition is either free or extremely low.
Which is amazing.
It is.
I mean, if you compare that to what you'd be paying in, like, the U.S. or the U.K.,
Yeah, or even Canada.
it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a really significant advantage for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, there's always
Well, there's always but
you still have to live.
exactly.
And living costs money.
It does.
So you have to think about the whole picture.
The whole financial picture.
Yeah, so tuition might be minimal or even non-existent,
Right.
but then you've got to factor in your monthly living expenses.
Uh-huh.
And those in Germany are probably going to run you somewhere between 800 and 1,200 euros per month.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
What are some of the biggest costs you're looking at?
So rent is obviously a big one,
Mm-hmm.
and that can vary wildly depending on where you are.
Yeah, if you're in a big city like Berlin or Munich.
Yeah, you're going to be paying more
Way more.
than if you're out in a smaller town.
Right.
But generally speaking, you're probably looking at something between 300 and 600 euros a month.
For rent alone.
Yeah.
Okay. And then food.
Yeah, food's another big one.
Gotta eat.
Gotta eat.
So how much should people budget for that?
Probably around 200 to 300 euros a month.
Okay.
And these are just estimates, obviously.
Yeah, your mileage may vary.
It all depends on your lifestyle.
Right? Do you like to eat out all the time?
Are you cooking at home?
Are you like super into organic produce?
Yeah, exactly.
That's-
All that stuff affects
Well,
it. But those are some good general guidelines.
Okay, good to know.
And then the other big one that sometimes people forget about is health insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's mandatory in Germany, right?
It is.
You gotta have it.
And it's going to cost you around 110 euros a month.
Okay.
And then transportation.
Uh-huh.
So that could be anywhere from 50 to 100 euros a month.
That's, again, depending on where you are.
Yeah, how much you're traveling.
If you're taking public transport,
Or if you have a bike.
all of that.
But it all adds up, right?
It does.
So you've really got to think about the whole picture.
You do.
But the good news is
Oh, there's good news.
there are scholarships.
Okay, tell me more about these scholarships.
So there are a bunch of different options out there.
And some of them can really significantly reduce your financial burden.
That would be amazing.
It can.
Nah.
So like one of the most well-known programs out there is the DAD scholarships.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
DAD's pretty big.
Yeah,
And their scholarships can actually cover like everything.
everything.
Your tuition, your living expenses, even your travel costs.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but they're super competitive.
I bet.
So you really got to have a strong academic record and a really well-defined research proposal.
Like if you know exactly what you want to study.
Yeah, you got to really know what you're talking about.
And you've got to be able to convince them that it's important.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's dad.
That's DAD.
What else is out there?
So there's also Erasmus Plus,
Erasmus Plus.
which is a really good option if you're looking to study within Europe.
Okay, so it's not just for Germany.
No, it's a European program.
Okay.
So it might apply to you if you're, from another European country.
Or if you're maybe doing a joint program or something like that.
Makes sense.
And then another really good one is the Heinrich Böll Foundation Scholarship.
Interesting.
So they're a little different.
In what way?
They look for academic excellence, of course.
Right.
But they also really value social and political engagement.
Oh, wow. So you have to be kind of like an activist?
Yeah, you got to be doing something to make the world a better place.
That's cool.
They're really looking for people who are trying to, make a difference. Yeah, it's a really cool program.
Okay, so Dade, Erasmus, plus Heinrich Böll.
Heinrich Böll.
Any others?
Yeah, there's also the Deutschlandstipendium.
Deutschlandstipendium.
And that one's a little more straightforward.
Okay.
So it provides a monthly allowance of 300 euros.
Okay.
To students who are just like exceptionally talented academically.
So like straight A students?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so there are options out there.
There are options.
It's not impossible to find funding.
It's not.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And we actually saw this play out in one of the student stories we looked at.
Oh yeah, who was it?
Rajaf.
Rajaf, okay.
Really bright student.
Uh-huh.
But he was really worried about the finances.
Right, understandable.
Proving that he had enough money for the visa.
Yeah, that can be a big hurdle.
And he was also really stressed about the IELTS.
The language test?
Yeah.
Tough one.
So LetzStudy actually helped him out with both of those things.
Oh, wow. How
So they gave him some targeted IELTS coaching.
Okay.
Which helped him get an amazing score.
That's awesome.
Like 7.5 bands.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that was great.
Yeah.
And then they also walked him through the whole process of setting up a blocked account.
What's a blocked account?
So it's basically this special type of bank account where you deposit a certain amount of money to prove to the German authorities that you have enough money to live on for your first year.
So you're basically showing them that you can support yourself.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
It can be a really complicated process.
I bet.
Especially if you're not familiar with the German banking system.
Right.
So having someone to guide you through it can be super helpful.
Definitely.
And then LetzStudy also helped Rajaf find some relevant scholarship opportunities.
Cool. So they were really like a one-stop shop.
Kinda, yeah.
That's awesome.
And it really eased his financial anxieties.
Good for him.
Yeah, it really made a difference.
It sounds like it.
So yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that if you understand the financial landscape and you know where to look for support, the whole process can feel much less overwhelming.
Yeah, like you don't have to figure it all out on your own.
Exactly. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about the academic side of things.
All right.
So what are the typical academic requirements you need to meet?
To get into a master's program in Germany.
Yeah, like what do you actually need on your application?
Right. Okay, so generally speaking, you're going to need to have a recognized bachelor's or master's degree from your home country.
Right. So if you're coming from the U.S. or India or wherever,
your degree needs to be like legit.
It has to be something that a German university will recognize.
Gotcha.
And then they're also going to look at your GPA.
Okay, so grades matter.
Grades matter.
Even for master's program.
Even for master's programs. And there's usually like a minimum GPA requirement.
What is that usually?
It's often around 3.5.
Oh, wow.
On a U.S. scale.
Okay.
But the thing is, the way that GPAs are calculated and the way that they're evaluated can be different depending on where you're coming from.
Right. Different countries, different systems.
Exactly. So they're really going to look at your transcripts carefully.
To see what your grades actually mean.
Yeah. To see how your previous performance kind of lines up with their expectations.
Okay.
And then you also need to be aware of any specific prerequisites.
For the program itself.
Yeah. So some programs will say like, okay, you need to have taken this many courses in this subject.
Right.
Or you need to have a certain level of understanding in this particular area.
So you really got to check the individual program requirement.
You do.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the language requirement.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
So if you're applying to a program taught in English, you'll need to prove your English proficiency.
Right.
And you usually do that through like the IELTS or the TOEFL.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah. So for IELTS, they're usually looking for a score of at least 6.5.
Okay.
And for TOEFL, it's usually like 90 or above.
Gotcha.
And then if you're thinking about doing a program in German, the requirements are even higher.
Okay. How much higher?
They're usually looking for like a C1 level of proficiency.
C1?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So it's basically like near native fluency.
Wow.
Yeah, you've got to be really good.
So I can't just like learn a few phrases.
No, you've got to be able to understand complex academic texts.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to participate in discussions.
Write paper.
All of that.
Okay.
And you usually demonstrate that through exams like TestF or DSH.
TestF, DSH.
Yeah.
Got it.
And actually, going back to Rajaf, his struggles with the IELTS initially really show how important it is to be prepared for these language tests.
Yeah, you can't just wing it.
You can't.
Okay.
And the coaching that he got wasn't just about improving his score.
Okay.
It was about, building his confidence.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that he felt like he could actually engage with his studies.
I see. So it was about more than just the test itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, even if you are doing a program in English, it's still a really good idea to learn some basic German.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it's just going to make your life easier.
In what way?
Well, navigating everyday life.
Yeah.
Going to the grocery store.
Talking to people.
Getting around.
Yeah.
It's just helpful to know at least a little bit of the language.
That makes sense.
And it also shows potential employers.
Oh, yeah.
That you're serious about integrating into German culture.
That you're not just there for the degree.
Exactly.
Okay, so language is important.
Language is important.
Got it.
All right, so let's actually break down the application process step by step.
Yeah, because it can seem really complicated.
It can.
When you're first looking at it.
There are a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
But if you break it down into smaller steps, it becomes much more manageable.
Less overwhelming.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's step one?
Step one is all about choosing the right program
Okay.
and the right university.
For you?
For you.
Yeah.
For your specific goals.
Both academic and career goals.
Exactly.
All right, and how do you go about doing that?
So, we've mentioned DAD a couple of times already.
They seem pretty helpful.
They are.
Yeah.
And their website is a fantastic resource for just exploring the options.
Okay.
They have a really great online database where you can filter programs by your field of study, the language of instruction.
So if you want to study in English or German.
Exactly, and a bunch of other criteria.
So you can really narrow down your search.
You can.
Okay.
So that's a great place to start.
Okay, so let's say you've done your research. You found a few programs that you're really interested in.
What's next?
So step 2 is all about actually reviewing the specific admission requirements for each university.
So you've got to go to each individual university website.
Yeah.
And look at what they're asking for.
Exactly. So this usually involves gathering your official transcripts.
Right.
Putting together a really detailed and up-to-date CV.
Yeah.
And writing that dreaded statement of purpose.
The SOP.
The SOP.
Everyone loves the SOP.
Not really.
No.
But it's important.
It's super important.
Yeah.
So the SOP is basically your chance to tell the university
who you are, why you want to study there.
Yeah, what your background is, what your motivations are for applying to this particular program.
And what you hope to do in the future.
Exactly. So it's really your chance to sell yourself.
To make them want you.
To make them want you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you've gathered all your documents.
Yep.
You've written your SOP.
What's step 3?
Step 3 is actually submitting your application.
Okay, the moment of truth.
Yeah, so this can happen in a couple of different ways. Some universities use UniAssist. Which is basically a centralized application platform.
Okay.
So you submit your application through them.
Yeah.
And they do like a first check.
Of your documents.
Yeah, to make sure that you meet the basic formal requirements.
Okay.
But then other universities have their own dedicated application portals.
So you have to apply directly to them.
Exactly. So it's really important to check the specific procedure.
For each university.
For each university that you're interested in.
Since they all do it the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. And then step 4.
Okay.
This is particularly important if you're not from the EU.
Okay.
You got to apply for your student visa.
The visa.
Yeah. So this is going to involve a few things.
Like what?
So you're going to need to submit your admission documents.
From the university.
From the university.
Okay.
You're going to need to provide proof that you have enough money to support yourself.
So basically the blocked account.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you're going to need to have health insurance.
German health insurance.
German health insurance.
Got it.
And then finally, step 5.
Step 5.
It's all about preparing for your arrival.
Okay, so you've got your visa. You're good to go.
You're in.
Now.
So you got to find a place to live.
Accommodation.
Yeah. And that can be tricky.
Why is that?
Especially in the bigger cities.
Yeah.
It can be really competitive.
Okay.
So you got to start looking early.
Got it.
And then you got to actually set up that blocked account.
Right.
Transfer the money in.
So the money's actually there when you arrive.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, they've talked about this, but
yeah.
Learning some basic German is just going to make your life so much easier.
Just for navigating everyday stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the 5 steps.
Those are the 5 steps.
So we actually saw this in action with one of the students we looked at, right?
We did.
Who was it?
Shanta Kumar.
Shanta Kumar, okay.
He knew he wanted to study automotive engineering in Germany, but he was just like completely overwhelmed.
By the whole process.
Yeah, by everything.
I can imagine.
You know, there are so many universities offering these programs.
Yeah.
And the SOP was just like a mystery to him.
Yeah, that's tough.
And then the application forms were all different.
Right.
And then the visa stuff was just like
a whole other beast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he actually got some really comprehensive guidance.
Okay.
Which helped him cut through all the confusion.
And figure it all out.
Yeah. And he actually ended up getting into RWTH Aiken.
Wow, that's a great school.
It is a great school for automotive engineering.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it just goes to show that, you know, having a structured approach and the right support can be super valuable.
Definitely.
And then we also saw this with Yasha's SK.
Oh, yeah. Huh. What happened with him?
So he actually missed the intake for his program.
What do you mean?
He applied too late.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So he couldn't start when he wanted to?
He couldn't. Ouch. But he learned his lesson.
He did?
He did.
Good.
And the next time around, he sought out help.
Okay.
Like way in advance.
Smart.
Yeah, so he started his application early. He got some help preparing for potential interviews.
Okay.
And he ended up getting into the University of Stuttgart.
Wow. Another great school.
Yeah.
So it pays to be prepared.
It does.
And to start early?
Start early, don't procrastinate.
That's good advice.
It is good advice.
All right, so we've talked about like how to actually apply all that stuff.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out again and talk about the why.
The why.
Why Germany?
Why do this?
What are the benefits?
Yeah, what are the things that make getting your master's in Germany such a good idea?
Right. So we already talked about the tuition.
Free or very low?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Huge.
But it's not just about the money.
No.
There are other reasons, too.
So what else is there?
So the universities in Germany are world-renowned.
They are.
They have a really strong international reputation.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about schools like TU Munich.
Yeah.
Heidelberg University.
Yeah.
Ludwig Maximilian University.
Big names.
Huge names.
And then you've got schools like RWTH Aiken.
Oh, yeah.
Which is amazing for engineering.
Especially automotive engineering.
Yeah.
And then the University of Stuttgart.
Another great engineering school.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to study engineering...
Germany is a good place to be.
It's a great place to be.
Okay, so the schools are good?
The schools are good.
What else?
And then on top of that, Germany has a really strong job market.
Oh.
Especially for people with master's degrees.
Yeah.
Especially in certain fields.
In-demand fields.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, you know, on top of all that, you get to live in Germany.
Which is pretty awesome.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So you get to experience a new culture, learn a new language.
Travel around Europe.
All of that good stuff.
Yeah. It's not just about the academics.
It's not.
It's about the whole experience.
It's about the whole experience.
Okay, so we've got the tuition, universities, the job market, the culture.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I think it's really interesting what Dr. Marcus Langer said.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
So he talked about how Germany's low-cost education system is paired with a really strong research infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, you're not sacrificing quality for affordability.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he also talked about how there's a really big emphasis on practical learning.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's not just about theory. It's about actually applying that knowledge.
In a real-world situation.
Exactly. And he pointed to the fact that there are all these collaborations between universities and industry.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you're not just stuck in an ivory tower.
Right. You're actually getting experience working with companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes you much more employable.
Oh, I bet.
When you graduate.
Yeah, companies love that.
They do.
Okay, so practical experience is key.
It is.
Got it.
And then Julia Zimmerman...
From Dad.
Yeah. She talked about how there are so many master's programs taught in English.
Which is great for international students.
It is.
Who maybe don't speak German yet.
Exactly. So it just makes German education accessible to a much wider audience.
I see.
And she also emphasized the importance of internships and research projects.
Again, with the practical experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially in STEM fields.
Science, technology, and engineering, math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Students are really getting that hands-on experience.
Which is what employers are looking for.
Exactly.
And that leads to a really impressive statistic.
Yeah, what's that?
About 85% of international graduates find jobs.
Within a year of graduating.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really high.
It is.
Okay.
So it really shows that employers value a German master's degree.
Yeah. They're not just handing these degrees out to anybody.
Oh, whoa. Well, let's be real.
Yeah.
It's not all sunshine and roses.
There are challenges.
There are challenges.
Okay.
So what are some of the things that international students might struggle with?
So one of the biggest ones is just like messing up the application.
Yeah.
Sending an incomplete document.
Paying the deadlines.
Missing a requirement.
All of that can lead to rejections. So you got to be super careful.
Double check everything.
Triple check everything. And then another big one is visa issues.
Yeah, the visa.
So Germany has pretty strict visa requirements.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't meet them, your application could be delayed.
Or even rejected.
Or even rejected. Oh. And then, of course, there's the money stuff.
The finances.
Yeah. If you underestimate the cost of living.
Yeah.
Or you don't manage your budget well.
Right.
You could run into problems.
You could end up not having enough money.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there are the more, like, everyday challenges.
Like with the language barrier.
Even if your program's in English.
Yeah.
It's still helpful to know some German.
You're going to need it for everyday life.
Right.
And then finding housing.
Oh, yeah.
That can be a real struggle.
Especially in big cities.
Especially in big cities.
Where everyone wants to live.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then just like the general cultural adjustment.
Right.
You know, you're moving to a new country.
A new culture.
With new customs.
New expectations.
It takes time to adjust.
It does.
But the good news is.
There's good news.
A lot of these challenges can be mitigated.
Okay, how?
Through careful planning.
Uh-huh.
Preparation.
And using the resources that are available. Exactly.
Okay, so give me some examples.
So like with the application, just be super meticulous.
Check everything twice.
Make sure everything's accurate.
No typos.
No missing documents.
Got it.
Submit everything on time.
Got it.
And then with the visa, apply early.
Like way early.
Like as soon as you have your admission documents.
Okay.
Just get that application in.
Don't wait till the last minute.
No.
Okay.
And then financially, just be realistic about your budget.
Do you research?
Explore part-time work options.
Within the legal limits of your visa.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then with the language, just start learning.
Even if it's just a few phrases?
Yeah, every little bit helps.
Okay.
And then with housing, start your search early.
As soon as you know where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Like to who?
Well, there are a lot of online resources.